Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Today, as you know, we have the fantastic and amazing Julieta Venegas with us. Just to get us started, I would like to ask you a little bit about your experience being born and raised in Tijuana, then growing up, becoming this fantastic international artist, Grammy winner, known all around the world. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and what are the key milestones around that big journey?
Okay, first, hi everyone. It's great to be here, and thank you for this whole event. I was born in Long Beach, actually. I wasn't born in Tijuana. I never lived in Long Beach. My parents were moving around California, and they're both Mexican, but they both had their immigration papers, but they finally settled in Tijuana. They grew up there, and practically, yeah. And they decided that was the best place to be. And I kind of grew up. I'm very much a border life. You know, I mean, every time one of my brothers or sisters were going to be born, we'd cross. They'd have their kid and go back to Tijuana. I was like, and por los papeles, mi amor, you know. So I actually grew up in Tijuana, but it's very much a border life, very much bilingual. I grew up watching American television. That's how I learned English. I never studied in the U.S. I did do like a junior college when I finished high school because I kind of wanted to study a career in music. But in Tijuana, the music school wasn't really that developed yet. So I decided to, try to, start getting my what is it called? Como las materias, estas que, like
the classes?
Yeah, like the points to get to
the credits.
SDSU.
Yep.
Yeah, the credits. And I was in the middle of that when I went to Mexico City to visit, and I just kind of fell in love with the city. I was like, I don't want to leave this place. It blew my mind. I mean, I'd been in big cities. I mean, not really that kind of big cities. I'd been like in, I don't know, like Los Angeles or San Francisco, but when I got to Mexico City, it's like part of me completed itself. I was like always in Tijuana thinking about Mexico. My dad was so much about Mexico. We were always talking about Mexico, but Tijuana was not, it was a mix. It wasn't exactly Mexican. It wasn't exactly U.S. So when I saw Mexico City, I decided I had to live there.
Of course. And
so I went back to Tijuana, picked up my stuff, and I've been there 20 years. That's the personal side. Musically, I started studying classical piano when I was 8. My parents thought it would be good for us to not watch too much TV. So, they had us studying piano and all kinds of lessons, ballet, painting, whatever came to their minds, and I was terrible at everything, and for some reason I came out being really good at music. So I started studying. I studied classical, like, what's it say, clases individuales.
Just individual
particular
lessons?
Classes,
particular
yeah,
lessons,
for like 8 years. Yep. And then I started playing in bands when I was in high school. A friend of mine invited me to a band as a keyboard player, and I discovered, improvisation and singing, and just kind of, it was a completely different path. And the important thing for me there was that I discovered songwriting, and that was basically what made me shift my path completely. And I started doing songwriting after that, and also at the same time I started doing music for theater. So it was instrumental and it was also songs, and so I kept on developing that. And then by the time I was 22, that's when I went to Mexico City. I was still kind of searching for what I wanted. I kept on putting bands together because I always thought I had to be in a band, and it never worked out. I always did a lot of writing with a few different people. And when I got to Mexico City, I actually put like posters up trying to get a band together. That's like the way we did it before, like internet. You modern people wouldn't know about that. Right? I did like posters in record stores and stuff like that, and I put a band together. It didn't work out either, but in one of those shows I met three of the guys from Café Tacuba, which was really important for me because I started going out with one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And no, but also it was really important for me because he's someone who really influenced me in saying, like, why do you want to keep putting bands together? Just do your thing. You have these great songs like in your drawer, but you keep putting bands together and making other songs, and it's just like. And I always dreamt of getting an accordion. It was always like my dream, and he pushed me into like, just get your accordion and your drum machine and leave me alone. You know? So I started doing shows by myself with just piano, accordion, and a drum machine. I started opening for a bunch of bands in Mexico City, and I actually did an 8-track demo, which was a big deal then. And a lot of people started like giving it to friends, and it kind of became like a boca a boca. Like, oh, there's this girl, and she plays accordion and she sings, and that way I started playing with a few musician friends, and in those shows, I don't know, things started happening really quickly all of a sudden. Nothing happened for ages, for a long time, but then all of a sudden people started showing up to my shows, and record labels started showing up to my shows. People from record labels, like 3 different record labels were interested. They'd heard the demo, and you know, one thing led to another, and here we are. No, I'm kidding.
Fantastic.
So I got signed. And that was a long time ago. That was almost what, like long time ago. It must have been like I got signed, I think, in 95, 96 or something. And then after that, it's been like, I mean, I put 2 albums that were not so well known outside of Mexico, which were Aquí and Buen Invento. But I was touring a lot anyway. But I really wanted to tour more. I felt like I was just kind of touring around Mexico, but it was really hard for me to leave. And also I had this sort of revelation between my second and my third album. I had like a year where I had this sort of crisis, like, what kind of songwriter do I really want to be? Do I really want to be this very experimental sort of songwriter? Do I want to express and communicate more with people? And that was like a year of, you know, thinking and writing and having this super crisis and what do I want? Because my second album had been a really critically acclaimed but very difficult album in every sense. Recording it was difficult, touring with it was difficult. It was just like really, and I was like, maybe I'm taking the wrong sort of path. Maybe I want something else as a songwriter. I wanted to do songs that were more that connected differently with people, you know, not like one day I remember being on the stage and sort of playing my super complicated and wonderful songs, and somebody and I just felt like people were just kind of staring at me like, who is this Martian? And I just kind of wanted, you know, I want to connect. That's what music is about, communication, and that's what I wanted. And so that took a lot of, you know, self-analyzing, and I never believed in analysis. So actually, I did my own self-analysis, and that's how I started writing C, which was my third album, and that was kind of a breakthrough. I think that was the first time that I actually went into the radio, that I started actually sounding in the radio, that people were like, people thought, a lot of people think that's my first album, but that's my third album.
Okay.
So you know, after that, a lot of things have happened, but that was already a while ago. That was in 2003, so it's been a while.
Okay, perfect. And I think you're doing a fantastic job just connecting with people with your music. You can really feel it when you hear your songs. And one of the themes that I'm hearing in your career is this sense of just being persistent, right? Like, even if things were not happening at the beginning, even if there was a try, fail, try again, and then at the end it actually happened, and it became a very big success for you. Can you tell us a little bit about how you were thinking about this process of I need to get up, try again, try something different, redefine myself, going to even self-analysis, which you didn't know?
Well, what happens, I think, is that I really enjoy the process of things. I don't believe in, you know, this is what I have to be by this time. This is what I really love the process of how you become who you are, and in every sense. Even now that I've already put out like 7 or 8 albums, that I've been touring forever, that I enjoy what I do also because I enjoy every bit of what I do, every different part of what it means to do what I do, which is every time I finish a tour, I dedicate myself like 4 months to just writing. I don't do anything else. Then when I'm touring, I just really enjoy the tour itself. I enjoy the shows. I enjoy like that connection with people. I think the important thing is that it's not only to think about how you get to where you want to get to, but it's just like the whole learning experience and the whole learning process, which I think is really a constant thing. It's not something that starts and ends when you get what you want. You're always sort of learning from what you, even when you get what you want, you're still learning. You still wonder if that was the right thing, and you know, you keep going. And I think what I really like to do is just ask questions all the time about what I really want. And I'm very curious about songwriting, and I'm still curious about it, about getting into the studio and see what happens. And it's not just, you know, oh, now it's like a sort of like a routine thing. I still feel the same nerves, the same intensity of trying a new song and just putting it together and then arranging it and then going to the studio and producing it. It's just all like, it's still sort of new. In a way for me, you know, when I start actually doing it, I don't feel like I know the steps, and I really prefer it that way because I don't know, I always think that it's better to forget what you learn and keep learning, even if you have to relearn. It's actually better, it's a better feeling. And I've always let myself be guided by my intuition more than what I know, you know, more than what I've learned. It's more like, what is my, you know, sort of instinct telling me to do at this moment, you know? And that's something I ask myself all the time.
That sounds great, and I think it's great advice. And as part of all this, just redefining yourself, just keep asking questions. It sounds that along the way there were also some opportunities and some challenges that you might have faced being Mexican American, and then just trying to break into an international market. Can you tell us how you were thinking about that process of oh, wait, maybe this is becoming something big, or do I want to go that way? Do I want to consolidate? How do I want to think about myself in the future if there's not a lot of, I'm in point A and I want to get to point B? It's more a self-reflection along the way. How did this process happen to you?
Well, when I think about the whole, my career in the sense of maybe when I found myself, people ask me a lot of why I don't sing in English, for example. I think the language has been something that's been very important for me because even though I grew up in a border city, even if I'm bilingual, writing in Spanish to me is much more natural. I mean, I've never tried writing in English really, and it's not something that I know that now I see a lot of artists who find it more natural, and I think it's great, especially when you live in the US, you speak Spanish, you speak English, but my mom always spoke to me in Spanish, you know, and my boyfriends. My emotional life has been constructed in, o sea, la he construido en español.
Claro.
So for me, writing has to do with my own language. So at one point, yeah, they started asking me, like, are you going to do like a crossover? And I'm like, I would like people to cross over to my side. This is my language, you know, this is what I celebrate when I write a song. And I think part of the search for me, because I'm influenced by a lot of books in English and obviously musicians in English, and the English language is very present in my life at least, but when I sit down to write, it's more connected with my emotions. Spanish is much more connected to my emotions, so I find it a lot more natural. I think that's the only place where I found, like, at one point when I put out my 4th album with Limón y Sal, it started getting super big, and it started like, yeah, it's starting to grow a lot. We want to do more of Europe. We want to go to Germany. We want to go to Italy. It started just kind of like growing a lot. And at one point, you know, things started coming up like, oh, you know, to sound in Germany, you have to do this. You have to have somebody else do an arrangement for the song, and you have to do this. If you want to, you know, sound in Portugal, you have to do a duet with this artist you've never even met and you don't even know, and you have to do it. And I was like, you know what? Let's just let it flow. You know, let's let it be natural. If it's not gonna happen, it's not gonna happen. Maybe I needed an extra bit of ambition that I didn't really have, because I kind of enjoyed what I was doing, and I was like, if people want to listen to what I do the way I do it, it's great, but I don't want to like sort of invent something that I'm not to sound in a radio and somewhere else. We eventually did go to Germany to do a tour, and it was great, and we eventually did go to Italy to do eventually things happened, but it didn't happen like at the point where everybody wanted them to happen, like, yes, now is the moment where Europe is going to be taken, that kind of thing. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, let's just kind of let it flow, and let's, I don't know. I just don't think that I really needed that. And I don't call myself non-ambitious, because I am. I mean, the fact that I'm doing music and that I'm still doing it now means that I guess I do. And I think we all need a little bit of ambition in our lives, to do anything at all. It's like, you wake up in the morning and you say, I want to get up and do something. That requires some sort of ambition, and sort of growing and learning and all that. But at one point you wonder, like, how far you want to take things. And I was like, this is all that I am. I can't be more than I am. I can't invent somebody that I'm not. So, this is as far as I'll go, and then we'll see what happens.
Of course. And I think the organic growth that you're mentioning, without making a lot of sacrifices, actually makes your music and you as an artist very authentic, very original. And just taking a quick look around the group here, I know the majority of us here, we're Latinos. La mayoría habla español, probablemente. But I even see, for instance, people from Germany here in the auditorium with us, which is really, really fantastic. And as part of all these cultural interaction, yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Germany. As part of this multicultural interaction of understanding what's specific to every market, what needs to be adjusted so that you can be successful. As Latinos, many of us know the big challenges that we see just going international, being successful, sometimes the stereotypes and all that. And I think we're all very conscious about that. So rather than asking you about those challenges, I'd like to ask you about the opportunities. What do you see as an opportunity for being Latino? For instance, I see in your career, there were a lot of partnerships along the way. People who also being Latinos, they help you along the way. They taught you, hey, we should do this, or we should do, I don't know, form a band, something like that. Can you talk a little bit more about that positive side that you see as something very special and unique of the Latino culture?
Yeah, definitely. I think that Latin America has, we're all connected, not only through our language, but also culturally. We're all very complex countries, We've had very complex histories, and we're racially very diverse in a different sense than how it is here in the United States. I mean, in Mexico tenemos como nuestra cultura indígena. In a lot of the countries, most countries in Latin America, we're very much mixed cultures, and we grew up with a sort of richness, and also with a sort of with all this like great history and terrible history of conquest, but also that is what made us who we are, right? So I do think that we have that in common, and culturally that makes us very, I think each one has their own identity, and very proud identities. And I mean, for example, in Mexico, I think that we are, I think Mexico is just like a brilliant and amazing and surprising country, even with all our problems. And I speak of Mexico in particular because I don't like to speak so much just so generally. At the same time, we're very corrupt, and we have a lot of problems, and that's why a lot of people just have the need to leave and try out, try to make things happen for them in a different place. Because there's also like a lot of poverty, a lot of violence. There's many things that make our country a very mixed place. It's beautiful. It's I haven't been able to leave, and I don't want to leave. The other day, somebody was asking me, "Why don't you come here? Like to the U.S. It's just you have, because I have 2 nationalities, right? So it's like el pasaporte, mi amor. But I'm in love with that city. I want to educate my daughter in that country, and I want to, I want her to be proud of her country, and it's a beautiful place. It's beautiful, and it's also heartbreaking sometimes to see a lot of things that are happening. And I've written a lot about that in some of my songs, and it's always present because it's sort of like a different pain that you feel, maybe, in a different love that also you feel for that place, for the people that we are. And I think that's something that a lot of people share in different countries in Latin America, that you have this sort of love and fear, and at the same time hope, you know, of all the things coming together and working out for everybody.
Of course. And being from Mexico City, I might be slightly biased, but I agree with you. It's a fantastic city to live in, and everybody should go and visit. And,
Yeah.
but it's also, there's one thing that you touched on that I think it's very specific to Mexico in your example, but it also happens, or it could happen in other Latin American countries. There is this city, this country is certainly not perfect. It's far from it. We know the huge problems that there are in society, in government, in every aspect of everyday life. However, that doesn't mean you don't love the country. That doesn't mean you don't absolutely love the city and like returning there and like establishing your entire life there. And I think that's what sets many Latin American cultures apart. There's this love, there's this familia feeling of everywhere we go. Could you say this has modified or in a way shaped the way you do music, the way you think about your career and everything, as compared to any other international artist you might know?
I'm not sure. I mean, I can't really compare myself with other artists. I mean, that I can say, oh, I did it like this when they did it like that. It's, I think everybody is, everybody's music has to do with their identity in one way or another. No matter what style you make, it's personal. It's always personal. So it's always about who you are, where you're from, what's your history like, what you like to look at in your own country or in other countries, you know? For me, making music has to do with my root, and that's not only in the obvious sense, which is like folklore, Mexican, como el folklore. It's also in every sense, culturally. The way that I think has to do with the fact that I'm from Tijuana, but I went to Mexico. All my decisions have been based on the fact that I am who I am, and I think that music is made that way. Everything, our art is made that way. It's personal, so you're kind of telling your own story in your music. And I can use, for example, in a song, I'll put in this super norteño accordion, but I also like to put in like something like a super synthesizer and mix it up, and because that's the person that I am, you know. Maybe it sounds kind of schizophrenic when you talk about it conceptually, but for me it works, you know. I don't find it to be and the song it works, and I think that has to do with the fact that I'm from Tijuana and I grew up listening to. I mean, my mom would sing Tigres del Norte on our way to school every morning, Contrabando y Traición. It's kind of funny.
Of course.
But she did every morning. She'd do Cri Cri or Tigres del Norte. So, you know, it's not so bad. You know, it's not so far away from my childhood that I mix that, you know.
Of course.
A norteño accordion and a really like melodic sort of idea, and I find the festivity of the accordion has to do with my character, you know, and also the seriousness of a piano, or the seriousness. I kind of, and I think that we're all telling our own stories, you know. I'm kind of telling my stories in my songs, and every story that I tell in my lyrics, or also musically, the way that I decide to dress up the song has to do with who I am. So yes, I think that definitely Mexico, and also the US, and also Tijuana, and also my family, and whatever it is that I'm feeling at that moment has to do with what I'm doing when I'm writing.
Of course. Is the accordion your favorite instrument?
Well, actually, we'll keep this a secret, but my favorite instrument is the piano. I'm actually, I always say that I'm a pianista disfrazada de acordeonista. I'm a pianist dressed up as an accordion player, because I'm actually a pianist. I write in the piano. Actually, when I write songs now, I used to do it differently, but it's always been changing. But now I sit down at the piano with nothing but my phone, and I write songs in piano. And maybe I'll use a drum machine, but it's mostly just piano. And after that, I'll start building the song up, and sometimes I'll use accordion, sometimes I won't. It's more like for arranging. I love arranging, and also I love to play it in the stage because it's so fun. You know, it's like you bring out the accordion. It's like, yeah, it's like bringing out like a lasso or something. It's, like, it's really fun, and it's I think that's what the shows are about. It's about fun and also just kind of making it like all different kinds of feelings, you know. You go, and I think definitely the accordion brings sort of like a festive and sort of a como una alegría, a joyous feeling for me, you know.
Perfect. And don't worry, we'll keep this a secret.
Okay, thanks.
Disregarding the fact that this is going to be posted in Talks at Google on the YouTube channel. Other than that, it's a secret between you and me.
Okay.
With this duality that you're talking about, and I think it reflects on a lot of the music that you do, right? It's the seriousness of the piano, but then bringing out the accordion, and as you mentioned, it's like bringing a lasso to somebody who plays the seriousness of classic piano music. Is that how you always see things? Is that, do you try to mix all these different elements, see what works better in every single case, and then just do it? Is that a conscious process, or is it just however it's coming for you and what you feel in the moment?
Well, we come back to the idea that I said before. It's intuition. I keep letting intuition sort of guide me. I'm not conceptual in that sense. It's not like I start writing a song and think this has to be this sort of song and it has to finish sounding like this. I never really know. It's very organic. I always say it's like knitting, writing a song. You know, you put the verse and you kind of bring it onto something else, and it's all like a live process. You don't really know what's going to happen, and it happens when I'm writing a song, and it also happens when I'm arranging it. It's sort of a live thing. I think that's the magic of it, and that's why I keep on doing it, because it's so. It's como you don't know what's going to happen, you know, unpredictable. So I think that's what I really like about it. I don't think that after. I mean, now I know that I can sit down and write a song, because I used to be like very doubtful. I've always been a skeptic in every sense. So it took me years to you know, kind of figure out why people are going to my shows. It's like it took me years to say, yeah, okay, yeah, I put some albums out, and I've never really believed the whole thing, you know. It's always like, yeah, this is who I am, but it doesn't mean that, you know, nothing is going to happen. And I'd always say, like, well, I'm not sure if when I sit down I'm going to actually come up with a song. But now, you know, after this time, I know that I am going to come up with a song because I like it, and I'm going to sit there until I do. And I'm very like, and also that I'm very disciplined. I mean, when I sit down to write, it's like I do the 9 to 5. Actually, okay. And that's what I do. I mean, I stop the tour. I don't like trying to write when I'm traveling. When I'm traveling, I like to read. I read all the time. But when I'm writing, it's like 9 to 5 thing. I stop for lunch, and also having a daughter makes me more disciplined in that sense, because it used to be when I was gonna write an album, I could take like, you know, the day and sort of just read and then go to the piano. But now I know that I have those hours, and for her it's also easier to, you know, to say, okay, you're done at this time and we can just hang out. And for me, it's like I can disconnect and just be where I am, you know.
Of course. It's funny that you mentioned that, because at least for me, from an external point of view, I'm not a musician, not a songwriter, not an artist, certainly, even though I play piano, but that's about it. For a lot of people outside this artist environment, it sounds like it's a matter of inspiration. Like you're basically walking down life, and then inspiration comes, and you're like, I need a piece of paper, and then start writing down. But it sounds that's not the case with you. That you do the formal, I sit down, and then at some point ideas are going to come. Is that typical for everybody who writes songs? Is that specific to Julieta? How is that?
I think everybody's different too. I don't know how other people write songs. I've never had that miracle, you know, that idea that, you know, it'll just come to my head and I have a song in my head. Let me sit down and write it. No, I have to kind of search for it. And I like it that way, because it's at first you're kind of fearful when you sit down and you see the blank notebook, because also I don't even have lyrics when I sit down. I write everything together. Maybe I'll have like one line or something and I'll start working with that, but usually it all comes up together. I mean, it all just kind of like, I start with one line, and that'll bring me on to the rest of it. And so I think other people will. I mean, I'm sure there are people who write on tour, and people who like to wait for the songs to come, you know. But I like the fact that I can sit down and, you know, find something, because also if nothing comes up, I'll just keep on playing the piano, which is something that I really enjoy. It's a different thing, and also it's like I don't like to feel like I'm searching for the song. I'm just like, I'm gonna play and let it come, you know, and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, it's just that I've always been very much in love with the piano, and playing the piano is also kind of therapeutic for me. I mean, I just kind of sit down and improvise all the time. I do read notes, and I do some exercises to warm up my hands and kind of like, but I also just kind of like to improvise.
Perfect. And I want to be conscious of the time. Oh, I think we have time. We might open the floor to a couple of questions from the audience, if that's fine with you. Just a quick question before that. What's your favorite Julieta song?
I don't have a favorite Julieta song. It's crazy. When I finished my album, so I'm serious. I'm not. You look at me like, oh my God, she's crazy.
No. I'm curious.
Okay.
That's what's going on.
Whenever I finish an album I mean, when I'm writing, maybe I'll have a favorite like for a day or two, and then I come up with another one, which is my favorite, and then that. But when I finish an album, I actually, when I'm done with the whole writing process and producing it, and I'll listen to it obsessively, I'll be all day like wondering if that's the right way to structure it, if that's the right way to do it, and blah, blah, blah. And when I'm done with it, it's like, okay, I'm done. That's it. I never listen to it again. I might listen to a song when I'm trying to bring it back for a show, or, you know, but I'm very, very lazy about listening to my own songs. It's like, no, I'm serious. It's like looking into a mirror, you know. You look into a mirror and, yeah, you use it, you know, you wear makeup, whatever, you comb your hair, you shave or whatever, and then that's it. There's no surprises there. And for me, listening to music has to do with, wow, how did they come up with that? Or, oh, you know, just being like moved by somebody, by their story, by what's happening to you at that moment, and that happens to me with other people's music, not with mine.
It's really funny. Okay, perfect. Let's open it up for audience questions.
Hola Julieta, muchísimo gusto de verte. Soy orgullosamente tijuanense. Yeah, I always say that before being a Mexican, I am from Tijuana, and I am the same as you. I was born in the U.S., but I grew up in Mexico. And my comment or question is related to that. I have the feeling that for many of our people that come from Latin American countries, people focus on the negative part. And it's true, we are not blind to what's going on, but there's so many things positive about every place in this planet that I always find it a little bit sad. I don't get offended because I know, but can you share with us something that you really like from Tijuana? Like, I can tell you that nothing beats a concert in Tijuana. Like, rock en español in Tijuana is the best thing in the world.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Tijuana is a very unique place. That's what it has. That you don't realize it when you're growing up there, but how different it is from any other city, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. It has nothing to do with, also not even with any other border city. I love border cities, and that's something that whenever I'm in a border city, I feel like I can understand, you know, the idea of living between two countries, always. But I think definitely Tijuana is a very special border because it's bordered with California. People, I mean, come on. And, you know, the coast is beautiful, and the food is definitely amazing. So, yeah, I really love having grown up there. I don't think I could possibly choose any other city, because also when I got to Mexico City, people found me to be a bit of a Martian, being norteño, because norteño, and people from the north of the country were very direct. We're just like, this is what I'm thinking, and it comes out like that. And in Mexico City, I had a hard time getting adapted to the way that people are. They were very, como ceremoniosos. They go around, they don't say what they're thinking, and we're all like, norteños are all like, yeah, just say it, you know? So yeah, definitely, I think, yeah, and I think the public in Tijuana are just like crazy and great, and I always like, and my family lives there actually. They still live between Tijuana and San Diego. Part of them live in San Diego, part of them, some of them go to school in Tijuana and live in Tijuana, others work in San Diego and live in Tijuana. It's kind of like, you know, both sides. Actually, this is like the way that I would like to end that comment, which is a friend of mine came with me to Tijuana one day to visit. She hadn't been there before, and I was like, you can't be to Tijuana, you have to come. And she came, and she didn't bring her passport. And I'm like, you came without your passport? I mean, how, what? She's like, I thought we were coming to Tijuana. I'm like, yeah, but coming to Tijuana is also crossing to San Diego. So I'm like, you're gonna get to know like half the city now. It's like, you know, it's sort of like the whole experience kind of goes together with Chulajuana, you know? So yeah, that was, yeah, she was kind of mad, but I was like, sorry I didn't explain. I thought you knew.
I also am a big fan, and I'm not from Tijuana, but I live in Ensenada, and I'm from Mexico City, so I relate to many of the things you said. I have two questions. One is that you said before that you want to educate your child in Mexico City. I would like to know why. And also, if you can share some of your favorite music, if not a favorite Julieta song, some of your favorites for other artists.
Well, I think the education part is because I love her growing up in Mexico City. I think it's just a city that has so much. We live in Coyoacán, which is a part of the city that I love, and she's very. Sometimes she asks me why we don't live on the beach, which is kind of really a big conflict, you know, and she's only 5. And I kind of look at her like, what? But we live in Mexico City. There's no place better than this, you know? And she's like, no, there's no dolphins here. Hello. So we do have a bit of, I'm sure it's going to come up again, you know? But I just kind of really, I like the school where she's at. She's studying in a bilingual school, which I kind of like that because I'm bilingual and I can, you know, relate to her being bilingual, although right now she se niega a hablar inglés. She's sort of like, you know, I'll talk to her in English, being all like, yeah, let's practice English, and she'll be like, sí, mama, okay. You know, like, but I don't know how to explain it. It's just this feeling that I love Mexico City and I love Mexican culture in every sense, and I like her being bilingual, and eventually I think we'll probably come to San Diego, you know, and we spent a lot of time in San Diego with my parents because they live there. But I just like Mexico City, you know. I like her being and growing up in a big city, but that's just because I love big cities. And maybe when she grows up, she'll be like, I want to go to Ensenada. And I don't know why I grew up in Mexico City, like you. Yeah, yeah. And what was the other question?
It's what's some of your favorite music, and if you can also share favorite books. I think
Yeah.
that you like a lot of books.
Oh yeah, of course. Oof. Don't get me started. Okay, no, music, I've been listening a lot to. There's a band from Argentina who's called Francisca y los Exploradores. It's very beautiful. He's actually a guy, not a girl, but he's Francisca. And it's pretty beautiful. He's pretty amazing. There's also, I don't know if you know Javiera Mena. She's from Chile, and she's beautiful also. Jepe, also from Chile. From Mexico, I'm sure everybody knows Carla Morrison, but I love her, and I love her new album, Amor Supremo, and she's beautiful and talented. Who else? Oh, there's a band from Mexico called Centaurus. They're not new, but I know a lot of people don't know them, and I really recommend them. Like, como bailoteo a la mexicana. It's pretty great. So those are some bands. Books. It's just that recently I've been pretty much into the Second World War, which is kind of not so, you know. But there is one. I mean, if anybody's into that, and if not, I really think you should read this book. It's not actually new, but I just barely read it this year, and I'm pretty amazed by it. It's called Life and Fate by Vasily Grossman. He was in the. It's all about the Stalingrado, como la guerra de Stalingrado between the Russians and the Germans, and he was there the whole time. So he's sort of like does this panoramic view of every single different situation that was affected by people during the war, which is pretty amazing, and it's beautiful, and I'm serious. That was probably like one of the books that I've read lately that kind of, it took me a while to get over, like when I was done with it, I just had this feeling of loss of not being done with it, you know. It was no, Fate, Vida y Destino de Vasily Grossman. Pretty great.
We have time for, okay. I think we're out of time. Julieta is on a very tight schedule today because we're going to do a tour.
One more question.
Can we
or-
run?
Hola, Julieta.
Hola.
Hi, I'm from Peru. I'm very excited to be here. I have been at Google for 3 weeks, so when my friends asked me, like, how do I like it, I was like, I'm going to see Julieta Venegas. I have a question. You mentioned that you have studied music since you were little, but how was the process for you to like decided that music was gonna be your career? You know, like for a lot of us, like we have very traditional like majors, and music is a really hard industry in terms of successful rates, right? And especially like before you became famous, like how did you decide that, like if you didn't know if you were be able to support yourself the next month, you know?
Well, actually, when I decided that I was going to make music was totally impractical. I was actually like 12. I was 12 years old, and I decided that that was going to be that was my vocation. That's what I wanted to do. I had no idea. At that moment, I thought I wanted to go to conservatory and study classical music and I wanted to be an orchestra director. And later it changed completely, but that's when I decided. That was totally like, I had no idea what was gonna happen with my life and what way it was gonna go or anything. I knew it wasn't something like a decision. It was just sort of like something that came from my body. You know, like this is what I am. You know, and that was sort of like a realization about who I was, about my identity, and as a personal, a personal thing. I'm a twin, so it was very important for me to realize that, because being a twin, you're always trying to find your identity and who you are and your individuality. And I think music helped me being who I am in every sense. And I think also that, just kind of, my sister is a photographer, which is kind of funny. She's like visual and I'm like musical, which is, we both found who we were, and that's helped our relationship a lot. And what was the other question? Sorry.
Oh, no, like, how did you decide this to be your major in terms of your career?
Oh,
And
my
does that, like,
career major. Well, also, that was funny because I had no idea what I was going to do. I mean, my idea of going to the university, I wanted to study ethnomusicology, which is not at all what I'm doing now. So I guess it was just like the idea of going to the university and to study music. That was like an idea that I had. Then I went to Mexico City and I started teaching English. When I never studied grammar. It's kind of funny, but it's not so funny. Never do that. But I needed a job, and my accent was pretty, you're practically Californian, yeah. So yeah, I just kind of taught English, and that's what I did for the first year, and then I did my first musical job was to do music for a play, and so. That was my first job. But yeah, it was hard in the beginning because my parents were pretty much like, oh, you're leaving to Mexico City? Great, I'm not gonna help you. And I was like, okay, I'll do this. I can do this, I got this. And yeah, the first year was pretty tough. But yeah, and I had no idea what was gonna happen. I mean, maybe eventually I could have given up, and I could have said, and actually at one point I was about to give up. I came, all my family pitched in for a ticket for me to come spend Christmas with them, which was kind of sweet, except my dad, of course, he was still mad. But I had this conversation with my mom, and I said, Mom, I don't think I can do this. I mean, I'm gonna go back. I don't know how I'm gonna pay the rent. This is like a struggle. I'm alone. I don't really know anybody. This is too much for me. And my mom was like, don't come back. I mean, every time I say this, I kind of want to cry. She's like, tuviste los pantalones para irte. Don't come back. I mean, I've never told you this, but my dream in life was to be a singer, and I never did it, and you're doing it. I'm like, I mean, I hadn't done anything, but for me, that was like the best push that she could have given me. And then they pitched in to help me pay the rent that month. It's pretty cool.
Julieta, once again, thank you very much for this. This was fantastic, very honest, very original, very you. Thank you very much for this chat. And let's give one more round of applause to Julieta.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.